Now let's continue with conservation of angular momentum. So far we learned that angular momentum of a system is product of its moment of inertia and omega, the angular velocity. Now we have Newton's second law in rotational motion. Net torque acting on a system is rate of change of angular momentum delta L over delta T. Suppose that we have a spaceship, it's acted by a couple like F and negative F, and so this net torque acting on the system will result in change in angular momentum. What if there is no net torque acting on that? So let's say net torque acting on the system is zero. Consequently, we have zero delta L. So delta L is zero means that there is no change in angular momentum. So angular momentum of a system remains constant. In short, we can say if the total angular momentum of a system is constant, the reason is just because no external torque is acting on the system, okay? It doesn't mean that L is necessarily zero. It could be zero, it could be non-zero, but remains constant. Here we have an ice skater with negligible friction to the ground, so net torque acting on her is almost zero. Let's say the spin has an angular speed of omega 1, okay? Then he closes her hands close to her chest, and so the distribution of mass is getting close to the axis of rotation. Because of that, I decreases. So at the beginning, I is larger because mass is distributed away from the axis of rotation. In the second case, I gets smaller because the distribution of mass is closer to the center of rotation or axis of rotation. But spin will have a different omega. Why? Because the total net torque acting on her is zero. Because of that, we can say the angular momentum is constant. Angular momentum is I omega. So at the beginning, I is large, omega is small. Then I is getting smaller and omega is getting larger. And because of that, when she closes her hands to her chest, we expect faster spin. Now we have a disk with initial angular velocity of omega 1. The other disk with a different moment of inertia has an initial omega like omega 2 but in opposite direction. They stick to each other, they join and combine, and the common angular velocity will become capital omega. How to find this capital omega? Okay, let's use conservation of angular momentum. At the beginning, L1, the angular momentum of the first disk, is I1 omega 1. I1 is the moment of inertia for the first, and omega 1, the initial angular velocity of the first disk. Likewise for the second one. And then when they join, the total angular momentum will be I1 plus I2 times omega. I1 plus I2 is the total moment of inertia for the combination. And this is the capital omega. Now we should sum these two and then put them equal to the final angular momentum. But how to sum them? That's very important point. As they are moving in opposite directions, okay, we have to subtract them. If they, at the beginning, they have the same direction of a spin, it is very easily a sum. But now it's a subtraction. So I should write I1 omega 1 minus I2 omega 2 is equal to I1 plus I2 times omega. So here I put a plus and minus depending on direction of rotation. Plus for same direction, minus for opposite direction of rotation. Now look at this question. A disk of radius 30 centimeter and mass 1.2 kilograms spins freely at an angular velocity of 5 radian per second. This is the initial state. A small object of mass 0.25 kilogram is dropped onto the disk with a negligible initial velocity and comes to rest relative to the disk at a distance of 20 centimeter from the axis of rotation. Okay, so we have an additional mass. Initially the mass is at rest, so again it sticks to the disk and comes to rest relative to the disk. We will have a combination. Part A. Calculate the final angular velocity of the system consisting of the disk and the mass, assuming that no external torques act on the system. Okay, we can use the conservation of angular momentum. The beginning angular momentum is I1 omega 1, is just for the disk, and then the combination of the disk and the mass, I1 plus I2, times the final omega. This is the final omega after the objects stick to each other. Then we plug in the values. Left side, we have the I for the disk. I for the disk, as it's a cylinder, is the half of mr squared. M is the mass of the disk, given to be 1.2 kilogram, and the radius is 30 centimeters, so it's 0.3. On the right side, we have again the same I1 for the disk plus I2 for the single mass. This small mass has almost a very negligible size, so we consider that as a point mass. For a point mass, you know that I is equal to mr squared. M is the mass, this 0.25 kilogram, and R is the distance, 0.2 meter to the center. That's all. Then you can find the final omega to be 4.2 radian per second. We used conservation of angular momentum. Now look at the part B. Determine the change in the rotational kinetic energy of the system. At the beginning, the system has this kinetic energy because we have just a single disk. So it's supposed to be a half of then I, a half of mr squared, and then initial omega, 5. This is 0.68 joule, the initial kinetic energy of the system. Then for the combination, I1 plus I2 here, a half of total I omega squared, and we already found the omega. Let's plug in the values. You see we have again the same I here for the disk, and this is the I for the point mass, mr squared. And this is the final omega. We found it in the previous part A. Then it's going to be 0.57. If we subtract them, we will find the change in kinetic energy. Necessarily it's negative because of friction. When this small mass sticks to the disk, there is a small friction in between and dissipates some energy. This is why the total kinetic energy is less than the initial, so delta E is negative. Another question. A rotating star collapses, decreasing its moment of inertia to 1,000th of its initial value. We have a bigger star with initial moment of inertia of I1, then it collapses and becomes I2. I2 is 1,000th of I1. The initial angular velocity of the star is omega naught, and its initial rotational kinetic energy is E naught, okay? We suppose that it's omega naught and E naught. For the star after the collapse, the new ones, calculate the angular velocity, let's say it's omega, and the rotational kinetic energy, EK2. Okay, for the angular velocity, we can use the conservation of angular momentum because the star is not acted by any external torque. So the total angular momentum before and after the collapse must be the same. So I1 omega 1 is equal to I2 omega 2. But we know that I2 is 1,000th of I1. Let's plug in the values and we will find omega 2 is equal to 1,000 times omega 1. For rotational kinetic energy, at the beginning the kinetic energy is E naught. We suppose that it's E naught, a half of I1 omega 1 squared. Then EK2. EK2 is a half of I2 omega 2 squared. But I2 is 1,000th of I1 and omega 2 is 1,000 times larger than omega 1. Okay, so let's plug in the values. Look at the parentheses here. We have 1,000 to the power of 2. One of them is crossed with this 1,000, so the final kinetic energy will become 1,000 times larger than E naught. It's very surprising. I have a question for you. What do you think this additional energy comes from? At the beginning, it's very strange. But okay, yes, your guess is correct. The reason for this increase is the potential energy. When the star is collapsing, it's using its initial gravitational potential energy, and that gravitational potential energy will become somehow to new kinetic energy the system has. This is why the kinetic energy is not conserved, and surprisingly it's getting larger. Again, Newton's third law in rotational motion. Here we have astronaut A and astronaut B. In linear motion, we know that if A acts a force like F on B, B also will have a reaction like negative F on him. Okay, this is in linear motion. What about rotational motion? Here, astronaut A tries to rotate astronaut B, and astronaut B inevitably will rotate him in opposite direction because the total angular momentum of the system is conserved. They are not acted by any external torque. So every torque will be reacted by opposite torque. So let's say when object A applies a torque to object B, then object B will apply an equal and opposite torque to object A. Now another question. A child sits at the edge of a merry-go-round of radius 2.5 meter. The child throws a stone of mass 0.5, half of a kilogram, tangentially like this, to the merry-go-round with an initial speed of 8 meters per second. So it's 8 meters per second. Show that the angular momentum of the stone relative to the rotation axis of the merry-go-round is given by L equals mvr. So we are going to show that L rather than I omega is also mvr, but not for everything. It's just for a point mass like a stone. Okay, let's start from the basic definition of L. It's I omega, you know. I for a point mass is mr squared. So let's plug in, and then I can decompose r squared like r times r. Mathematically it's correct, you know. R omega is exactly v, you know, linear speed. So we can write it as mrv. So we prove that L equals mvr is another representation of I omega, but for a point mass. The merry-go-round is initially at rest and can rotate without friction. The combined moment of inertia of the child and the merry-go-round is 1400 in SI. Calculate the final angular velocity omega of the merry-go-round. So let's consider the system like that. Before throwing the stone, we have a stone that's very small and almost negligible mass regarding the huge mass of the child and the merry-go-round. And then it's thrown leftward and the merry-go-round starts rotating clockwise. You are going to find this omega. Basically, we have a system not acting by any external torque, so the total angular momentum of the system is conserved. Regarding this conservation of angular momentum or Newton's third law, we can write I1 omega 1 for stone is equal to I2 omega 2 for the merry-go-round and the child. Okay? Then we can plug in the values. MVR is the angular momentum of the stone, as we proved it in the previous part, and the angular momentum of the merry-go-round and the child is given to be 1400, and omega 2 is our goal. Okay, so let's plug in the values. This is the mass of the stone, half of a kilogram. This is the V and the radius 2.5. Okay, 1400 is also the I of the merry-go-round and the child. So omega 2 is going to be 7.1, 10 to negative 3 radians per second. This is the initial angular velocity of the merry-go-round and the child after throwing the stone. That's all. Lesson is done. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with me, and see you soon.